Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Module 7. 3 more weeks to go in the class. We're 2/3 of the way through, but we do still have some interesting information to cover, and of course, you're working on your papers, and we'll be turning your project in at the end of this week, so there's still a lot to do. Last week we looked at power and authority, legitimacy. We're devoting 2 weeks to that for this course, and I hope you found the material we covered last week interesting. You learned a little bit about Stanley Milgram's experiment. We'll have a chance to actually read the article this week. You saw a video presentation on what the experiment consisted of, so you already have some idea of what it's about. And many of you did a nice job in the discussion board for Module 6 in discussing and applying some of the information in that. So you'll have a chance to read the article. It's a pretty brief article, but it's interesting, and it'll flesh out any questions you might have on that in terms of not only what took place, but the implications. This week, as I said, we'll continue our discussion of power and authority and legitimacy. We'll start with a video looking at how people deferred to authority, but in a real world setting, rather than the setting in the artificial lab that Milgram used to conduct his experiment. I think you will find that pretty interesting as well, and I hope you'll think about how you would have responded if the person who is actually directing people in that video were to direct you to do something. We'll also look at the work of Rosenhan. He conducted a landmark and controversial experiment looking at how people are treated in an insane asylum. Mental health facility is what we would call it today, but in those days it was called an insane asylum. And what he did basically was go in, pretend that he heard voices, and he wasn't the only one who did this. He had others participating in the experiment. And then, once admitted, they continued to behave as normal. So the question was, how would professional staff respond to their normal behavior once they'd been admitted? Did the context within which their behavior was observed have an influence on how they were judged and assessed? I think you will find this pretty interesting. You may have run across it in previous classes, but you will have a chance to read the article and also see a video on it. You're concluding your work on your projects, and those will be turned in on Sunday. I'm really looking forward to taking a look at those. It was an opportunity for you to do some basic research, to collect some data, and then apply that information, your findings, to a particular concept, the concept of false consciousness that we covered earlier in the term. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing those PowerPoint presentations. Make sure you cover all the elements of the assignment, and make sure that the PowerPoint slides are interesting, the way in which they're put together and presented. You don't just want to have text, because PowerPoint gives you the opportunity to do some other things using graphics. So it's not a requirement. I didn't put that in the instructions as a requirement, but of course, the more animated your audience is because of what they're seeing in the PowerPoint, the more effective the PowerPoint will be. Okay, so that's it for Module 7. After this week, we only have 2 more weeks to go. I hope you continue to work on your papers. And as always, if you have any questions about anything in the course, our assignments, the material, you know how to get hold of me, and I'll be happy to work with you in answering your questions. Okay, have a great week.